Welcome everybody to the HPS virtual annual meeting this year. I'm just going to speak for a second, let folks know how to ask questions. We're going to have the opportunity to ask questions throughout the day today, and we'll be monitoring the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel. You can type in your questions there, and Nicole and Alex will be moderating. There's Nicole waving. We'll be moderating and taking their questions and presenting them to the speakers and to the panelists. With that, let's see, I want to also thank our sponsors. We have sponsors this year for our meeting, and if you're interested in being a sponsor, let us know. We have hundreds of people signed up for these events, and it's a good way to get your information out. These are our sponsors so far for the meeting, for the entire meeting, for the entire 7-week event. And we do have one title sponsor today. Oral is the title sponsor, and we'll be seeing a short video from them after our break today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our president, to Eric.
Thank you, Brett. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Golden. I'm the president of the Health Physics Society. It's my great honor to welcome you to the first ever Health Physics Society virtual meeting. This is the first in many regards. This is the first virtual meeting for the Society. This is the first time an HPS president has presided over a second term. I'm the first 2-year term president. And this session is the first that I'm aware of on diversity and inclusion. And we have a great series of sessions ahead of us through October 21st. In addition, you can still sign up for PEP sessions or individual sessions up to the day before they occur. So if you're in need of continuing education credits, this format is really terrific. I'm going to miss the face-to-face meeting, the interaction between colleagues, bumping into people that I've known for 30 years or more, but that part of our meeting will take place again in the future. I'm going to put in a plug now for some of the upcoming events. We'll have our workshops next spring that replace the mid-year meeting, and I'm sure that will be a great success based on the interest in this virtual meeting and its workshop format. And we have our next annual meeting scheduled in July next year in Phoenix. That'll be toasty, but I lived in Arizona in the summer. It's doable, and they really know how to do air conditioning. We've also gotten approval from IRPA, the International Radiation Protection Association, to host a North American IRPA Congress in February 2022 in St. Louis. That's going to be a terrific meeting. We're working jointly with Canada and Mexico to put that one on. So there are great things to look forward to help you advance your career, advance knowledge, and link with others in the field. Before I close, I'd like to thank some folks with whom this meeting could not have taken place. First, I want to thank Burke and Associates for their support in our endeavors in making this happen. We know it isn't easy, and there's been a tremendous effort to pull it all together. Secondly, I want to thank Tim Talby and Mike Mahaffey, our directors responsible for the committees that set up the meeting. And lastly, but not leastly, I'd like to thank Zach Tribbett, our meeting task force chair, and Chris Shaw, the program committee chair, because they led the team that really pulled the meeting together, and they've done the lion's share of the work, and it really was a ton. They deserve a huge virtual applause for the success of the meeting, and I thank them greatly. With that, I'd like to turn the virtual podium over to the session chairs, Kendall Berry and Nicole Martinez, and look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. I'll be one of your moderators today. Our first speaker is going to be Kendall Berry. She's the Radiation Safety Officer for Fox Chase Cancer Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Kendall got into health physics by being accepted into UNC Chapel Hill's health physics program immediately following the completion of her undergraduate degree in physics. She's been working in academic medical institutions for over 20 years. As an active female member in the Health Physics Society for many years, Kendall personally knows that within the HPS, there's room for improvement when it comes to issues of harassment and inclusion. She is dedicated to actively helping the society achieve its vision of being a home for radiation safety specialists. Kendall, take it away.
Kendall, let me interrupt you for a second. This is Brett. We were seeing the wrong screen, so we can easily fix that though. So we're now seeing just a, there you go, perfect.
Okay, now I think I'm ready to go. Welcome to the special session on diversity and inclusion, co-sponsored by the Membership Committee and the Women in Radiation Protection section. Thank you so much for joining us today. The aim of my presentation is to explain the genesis of this special session, provide a brief overview of some recent HPS diversity initiatives, explain our hopes for this session, and establish a common understanding of diversity, inclusion, and equity for this session. So how did this all start? It all started with an email last October, nearly a year ago now. The email was addressed to some of the HPS leadership and contained a series of questions, which led to an exchange of emails over a period of about 4 weeks. And I answered all of the questions sincerely and honestly, but I had a nagging feeling that something was left unfinished. I spent a lot of time talking about these messages with my best friend and became uncomfortably aware of some of my own unconscious biases. Of course, this did not feel good at all, but rather than run from that feeling or shut it out, I sat with that uncomfortable feeling and new insight and thought about it. It occurred to me that maybe this is just the tip of the iceberg and not simply a singular HPS member with a concern. So I approached Nicole Martinez, president of the Women in Radiation Protection section, and Lainey Cochran, chair of the membership committee, with the idea for a special session on diversity and inclusion. And here we are today. When Bei Chu volunteered to organize this session and submitted our abstract in January, none of us involved had any idea that our session would end up being so timely. While this session is timely in relation to events in our society at large, this is not the Health Physics Society's first endeavor into issues of diversity. Recent initiatives started back in 2014, and admittedly, recent endeavors have been largely focused on issues important to women in HPS, and not diversity in a broad sense. However, an overview of what has been accomplished to date is worth reviewing as a reminder of the smaller steps that have been taken in recent years that have helped us arrive at the point where we are now ready to openly discuss broader issues of diversity and inclusion. Using 2014 as a starting point, Elizabeth Gillen-Waters and Nicole Martinez co-authored a paper titled Review of Gender and Racial Diversity in Radiation Protection. This paper led Elizabeth Gillen-Waters to being selected as the Health Physics Society's Young Investigator nominee to the IRPA 14 conference in 2016. The paper included analyses of the percentage of women earning health physics and nuclear engineering degrees, and you can see that the number of women earning a health physics degree topped out at a bit above 30% in 2012. The number of women passing Part 1 and Part 2 of the CHP exam over a 5-year period was analyzed. The women that pass these exams make up a small piece of those pies. The paper also included an analysis of health physics and nuclear engineering degrees by race. The work also inspired a poster presentation on the history of women's contributions to the radiation sciences, as well as a special session at the 61st annual HPS meeting in 2016 on radiation protection and culture. In early 2017, HPS President Bob Cherry created a task force on diversity and discrimination issues that was chaired by Elaine Marshall. The HPS Code of Ethics was revised at the 62nd Annual HPS meeting in 2017 to add members to the requirement that all relations with members, employers, coworkers, clients, governmental agencies, and the general public shall be based upon and shall reflect the highest standards of integrity and fairness. Also at the 2017 annual meeting, a grassroots effort led to the first Women and Minorities reception that was open to everyone. This reception is now a regular fixture at the annual meeting. By the end of 2017, a respectful behavior policy was drafted and approved by the HPS board under then President Eric Abelquist. And the creation of non-technical HPS sections was approved by the society membership. The Women in Radiation Protection section, the first non-technical session, was approved in July of 2018. This section sponsored a special session on ethics and radiation protection at the 2018 annual meeting. A special issue of the Health Physics Journal was published in November of 2018, and that was entirely dedicated to women in radiation protection. Last year, the Women in Radiation Protection section sponsored a special session on social and ethical values in radiation protection at the annual meeting. Also, at last year's annual meeting, the International Collaboration Committee sponsored a special session on communication, and the student reception was reinvented as a successful speed networking event. The October 2019 edition of the Health Physics News included David Connolly's submission detailing Congress's efforts to combat sexual harassment in the sciences, and the November 2019 edition included an article on respectful behavior in the Health Physics Society based on harassment survey responses received from HPS members. Our president-elect, John Cardarelli, has recently reviewed our society's student travel awards from 2012 through 2019. His review identified that Alcorn State, a historically Black college and university, has received 72 awards in the past 8 years. Alcorn State students received the greatest number of student grants among the 59 universities, which demonstrates an 8-year history of the society's efforts to address diversity issues. To hear more about this, make sure that you join your local chapter's president-elect meeting and hear more from John. A lot of progress has been made, much of it through grassroots efforts by individuals who saw a need and together found a way to make a difference. All of these efforts over the past 6 years have led the Health Physics Society to the point where we are today, openly discussing issues of diversity and inclusion within the society. Again, admittedly, the work so far has primarily been focused on women. There's been some discussions of age and ability, but very little on disability, race, or LGBTQ+ issues. So how diverse is the Health Physics Society? As of June 18th of this year, Health Physics members self-identify as 69% male, 17% female, and 14% have opted not to indicate a gender. As far as ethnicity, HPS members are 64% Caucasian. We have 23% opting not to indicate their ethnic background, and the remaining 13% is split among 1% mixed, 5% Asian, 2% Black, 2% Hispanic, 1% Native American, and 2% other. We consider the age breakdowns. The age bracket from 50 to 69 accounts for 39% of our membership. 17% of our members did not indicate an age, and the rest of the breakdown is there's 6% that are under 20, 7% that are 20 to 29, 11% are 30 to 39, 9% are 40 to 49, and we have 8% that are 70 to 79, and 2% that are 80 and over. This means that the average HPS member is male, white, and he's in his 50s or 60s. However, there are at least 17% of the HPS members that are women, like me, 33% that are younger than 50, also like me, and 13% are not Caucasian. I can't claim that one. What about our leadership? The current executive committee is 1/3 women and 2/3 male, all Caucasian. However, it is worth noting that 7 of the 65 Health Physics Society presidents have been females, and 3 of those were in just the past 10 years. On the board of directors, 5 are female and 2 are male, and 6 of the 7 are Caucasian. If you look at our advisors to the board, 4 of 12 are female, 8 of 12 are male, and they're all Caucasian. So overall, that is 11 female voices to 14 male voices on the board. And that's actually a pretty good split. I personally don't know the ages of everyone on the board. We've not had reason to discuss that. But I think I can safely say that the board is heavily stacked with individuals 50 and older. As for ethnicity, the board is very nearly all Caucasian. So why should HPS think about this? After all, as a percentage, there are more women with voices on the board than there are in the Health Physics Society. So the Health Physics Society is doing a great job already, right? Yes, the Health Physics Society is doing a good job, but we can do better. Actively including individuals with different backgrounds and perspectives is commonly understood to be a strength for organizations and leads to better problem solving. To solve some of the challenges facing the Health Physics Society right now, we need diversity. Now, I know that we have some HPS members that are critical of addressing diversity in the Health Physics Society. Let me take a moment to address a few of the criticisms that I have heard over the past few years. First, none of the HPS leadership claims that the lack of diversity is due to discriminatory practices by the Health Physics Society. The reasons for our lack of diversity are broad and varied and are not unique to health physics. Many of our issues are similar to diversity issues in other sciences. Another criticism that has been that the Health Physics Society is a scientific society and should not be concerning itself with issues such as respectful behavior and diversity. I think one of my mentors said it best when I discussed this thought with him. His response was, "There's nothing special about being a health physicist that magically insulates us from bad behaviors. We are human and we interact with each other during Health Physics Society functions, and sometimes we make mistakes during those interactions. Instead of continuing to pretend that the mistakes aren't happening, light is being shed on issues that have been pervasive in the Health Physics Society but not openly discussed. So yes, we have behavior issues. We have diversity issues. And these are being and will continue to be focused on within the Health Physics Society for the foreseeable future. Now, when I first started imagining what a special session on diversity and inclusion could be, and what I hoped the Health Physics Society would gain from it, I had hoped that the ultimate result would be that we could use the information gained from this session to support a recommendation to form a diversity and inclusion task force. However, events that occurred this summer to Black members of our society at large prompted some tough but respectful board discussions, and those discussions resulted in the creation of a diversity and inclusion task force on June 17th of this year. Dr. Nicole Martinez and I are the co-chairs of this task force and is comprised of 7 members. The 7-member task force spans 4 generations, includes 3 non-Caucasians, 2 men, 5 women, and at least 3 known disabilities are represented. The first task was to draft a statement on racism and injustice, which was reviewed, edited, and ultimately approved by the Health Physics Society board. Our next task is to provide a report to the Health Physics Society board that includes recommendations and suggestions for strengthening diversity, inclusion, and equity within the Health Physics Society. So we're already ahead of where I had initially hoped this special session would get us. So now what do we hope to accomplish with this session? We hope to gather more input and ideas from our fellow Health Physics Society members at large to help inform the task force of issues of which we may currently be unaware that should be considered by the task group. With your help, we can help Health Physics Society achieve its mission of being the home for radiation safety specialists. Yes, the word home is in our vision statement. Home, the place where you can let your guard down, smile, relax, share conversations, discuss frustrations, and feel safe. I hope that you actively participate in this session using the question feature and share your thoughts, questions, and ideas to help the Health Physics Society become a more equitable organization. To guide the discussions for the rest of this session, I would like to now pivot to talking about the broad concepts of diversity, inclusion, and equity. First, I want to take a moment to think broadly about diversity, very broadly. Diversity is a key aspect of our lives. We have all been taught to eat a diverse diet, rich in fruits and vegetables and low in added fats and sugars. We need some of everything in our diets. We need protein, fats, fiber, and carbohydrates in our diets in order to allow our bodies to function optimally. A diet that consists of any one of them solely will leave our bodies undernourished. Now consider your personal finances. As health physics professionals, almost all of us have retirement accounts, whether they're 401k, 403b, or pensions, or some other option. The underpinning theory for these investments is diversity. You do not want a financial profile that is solely made up of only real estate, only risky international investments, or only bonds. You want a diversified portfolio so that if one part of your portfolio tanks, you're not completely out of luck. Let me also ask you to consider the outdoors for a moment. As you walk or drive around, you'll see diversity in trees and plants and animals. This biodiversity is important for the sustainability of the world as we know it. Diversity plays out in many aspects of your life. Just as important as diversity is to your diet, your financial well-being, and our Earth, diversity is key to the success of the Health Physics Society. Diverse organizations benefit from a variety of different perspectives, increased productivity, higher innovation, faster problem solving, better decision making, increased creativity, and helps to avoid miscommunication based on cultural differences and ignorance about other groups. Merriam-Webster defines diversity as the condition of having or being comprised of different elements. Some of the differences that individuals bring to the Health Physics Society include race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, age, geographic background, education, economic background, thinking, and communication style. As an organization of scientists that is watching our membership numbers decline year over year, we should be striving for diversity among our membership so that we can reap the benefits of creativity and innovation that can come with diversity. However, diversity alone is not enough. We need to also focus on inclusion. Inclusion refers to the behaviors and the social norms that ensure people feel welcome. Inclusion builds a culture of belonging by actively inviting the contribution and participation of all people. Putting a minority in the room but not listening to their ideas does nothing to improve creativity or innovation. We need to ensure that our diverse members feel welcome and are able to use their voice to participate in decision-making processes. They need to feel that their ideas, views, and concerns are heard and respected. This will happen naturally when inclusion is not only valued as a concept, but is also the expected way of doing business in the Health Physics Society. Taking diversity and inclusion a step further, the third similar concept is equity. Equity seeks to ensure fair treatment, equality of opportunity, and fairness in access to information and resources for all. Examples of equity in the Health Physics Society would be ensuring that members with visual impairments are able to view and understand presentations provided at meetings. Equity could be alternating section or committee meeting time so that younger members without the seniority necessary to participate during the workday can still participate in section and committee leadership. Equity could be that all speakers use microphones so that the hearing impaired have a fair chance to hear what is being said during presentations and follow-up discussions. This last example is a particularly personal one for me. When I am sitting in an HPS session or meeting and a speaker declares that I don't need to use the microphone, I cringe because I know it is highly probable that I will not be able to hear everything the speaker says. In fact, I typically miss significant portions of those presentations when microphones aren't used. Sure, speakers often ask the audience, you can hear me, right? Typically, individuals, including me, will not stand up and say, no, you actually need to use the microphone, and thus call attention to their hearing impairment. I imagine that at least a couple of you right now are thinking, wow, I hadn't thought about that issue. And that is a great example of the benefit of diversity, inclusion, and equity. You learn and understand the impact of issues that you have otherwise had no personal reason to know or understand. Now, as we shift into talks and programming that will include your input, I would like to remind everyone that our respectful behavior policy applies to our virtual meetings also. Specifically, all participants in Health Physics Society events and other society activities are expected to treat other participants with professionalism and respect. Participants are expected to refrain from all harassing behavior towards any individual or group. Participants asked to stop any harassing behavior are expected to comply immediately. Diversity, inclusion, and equity discussions are admittedly emotional topics, but I know that we are capable of having open, respectful dialogues. Respecting and embracing all of our differences will make us a stronger and more viable professional organization. I hope that you will actively participate in this session this afternoon and share your needs and concerns. It is only through open and respectful dialogue that we can understand the needs of our members. And once we can understand your needs, we can work to meet those needs. Thank you for your attention, and I believe I have a few minutes available for questions, comments. I'll let our moderators take over at this point.
Thanks, Kendall. We do have one clarifying question while we switch over to our next speaker. And so the idea of inclusion and diversity and respectful behavior, those things are related but different. So in terms of the clarifying question is, suppose that we improve our diversity to be, let's just say, representative of society. Would that guarantee that we always have respectful behavior?
Oh, I wish. I wish. No, respectful behavior is different than diversity. That's where the inclusion, there's a slide that I had that was bunches of puzzle pieces, and then the puzzle pieces were put together in the image next to it. Just having diversity alone without inclusion doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have respectful behavior. But once we decide that inclusion is our norm and it's going to be the way forward, and we rely on our respectful behavior policy to set the norms and tell people when they're not being respectful, look, that wasn't respectful, you need to stop. And when they stop, then that's fine. Everybody can learn, everybody can make mistakes. But once it's pointed out that you've made a mistake, as long as those people stop, we're good and we move on.
Great, thank you. Hopefully that responded to the question. And then another question was if anyone has looked at the broader health physics community as opposed to just the society.
At this point, no, this was a presentation built for the Health Physics Society specifically and was not looking broader at this point.
And I can probably answer that a little bit. ORISE does, and Alex, you might know a little bit about this too, but ORISE does studies about graduation rates, and that's not necessarily connected to the Health Physics Society. That gives probably a picture of the better health physics community, but I don't think they collect data on race. I'm actually not sure how much data they have on sex either, but they do collect some data, and there may be some other resources as well, but not in a consolidated place is my understanding. To keep with the time, we do have a couple more questions, but we have those noted, and perhaps we can save those for the panel discussion just to keep with the time. Okay, great. My co-chair agrees with me. So then our next speaker will be Sydney Moore. Sydney is currently a health physicist at the National Institutes of Health, serving as the dosimetry program manager. Being in the field for 6 years before working at the NIH, Sydney worked for Norfolk Naval Shipyard and Naval Research Laboratory, where she learned to support naval nuclear propulsion and research. Moreover, she earned her master's degree in community health concentration environmental health from Old Dominion University in 2016. Currently, Sydney is earning her Master's of Health Physics specialization in radiological security, emergency preparedness, and response degree from Illinois Institute of Technology to pursue a career in nuclear security and nonproliferation. For this presentation, Sydney wants to spread the knowledge of the vast contributions of African Americans in the nuclear field. Furthermore, to expand the message of diversity and representation for African Americans to continue to make a strong impact in health physics and related occupations. And then whenever the slide is ready and you're ready to go, Sydney.
Yes, I was just waiting for you. Let me start. I think, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Oops, nope, no. All right, sorry. I'm trying to get myself right here. There we go.
So while you're doing that, while you're getting set up, Sydney, I'll just mention, I know you have several videos in yours. When we get to the videos,
yes.
if you just prompt me, I'll run them. I know which order to run them in. It'll just take a second to click to the videos because I need to switch presenter and then run the video and then switch presenter back to you. So it'll be easy. Yep.
Okay, and I think I got, everybody can see my screen?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect, awesome. Well, thank you, Nicole, for introducing me. I'm gonna do first a quick history lesson and then going to why representation matters. So here on the screen, you see a quote from Michelle Obama from her New York best-selling book, Becoming, and it says, "Am I good enough?" And why does that matter to this presentation or the session? Is because everybody at one point in time asked themselves the exact same question, whether it was for work, school, or just normal days of life. Everyone has been or is going through the same situation. Am I good enough? To further put this in a rational statement, this is kind of like a theme for this presentation, to show that throughout our history that African Americans has worked endlessly to change this statement. And I particularly focus on the Manhattan Project because that's kind of like a part of history that not a lot of people know that African Americans had a good handle on or a part of. Going on to the next slide, I put a definition. And I highlighted the second bullet because I felt as though this kind of put into perspective what representation means. And it means the state of being represented. Does that mean just a single group of people like African Americans or the LGBTQ+ community? Well, to me, I feel as though somebody should be able to see themselves in all aspects of whether it's professional or outside of the professional field. And we want to be able to create an atmosphere for them to feel comfortable. So instead of just using them as a pawn, whether it's for very small numbers, we should be able to see them all shapes, sizes throughout the entire society. Here's the slide where it's kind of like a statistical or representation. This came from the scientists and engineers working in science and engineering occupations in 2015. Granted, it was 5 years ago, but it still matters. And I highlighted Black women and Black men, that they made up 5% of this entire survey. I'm not for sure how many people, but that number alone is astounding comparing to Asian men and women and white men and white women. For the same 5%, they broke it down a little bit more, where you can see different occupations within that 5%. I highlighted physical and related scientists and S&E related occupations because I feel as though health physics fall between one of the two, or health physics related jobs. And as you can see as well, is less than 10%. So from these numbers that I explained to you, can you basically say representation or diversity is effective, or it's known throughout our society's history, or even currently with the jobs that we have now? But one way to probably just understand why maybe the numbers are low, or why people are not as interested, or maybe they don't know, is to start from the beginning. And here you will see a quote from the former US President Barack Obama. It says, "If you're walking down the right path and you're willing to keep walking, eventually you'll make progress." And I kind of started this section off as a history lesson about the Manhattan Project and the diversity and inclusion issues that occurred during that time. So let's begin the quick history lesson. Here we're going to talk about the motive. We all know that the Manhattan Project is one of the premier center focuses of radiation protection and sciences. It occurred right after the Great Depression, so pretty much everybody wanted this opportunity to finally get out and work, be back to their normal livelihood, just be normal again. But for African Americans, workers were striving to escape Jim Crow laws and originate and being able to use their knowledge and education to be able to get their families back in a normal state like they was before. President Franklin D. Roosevelt established the Executive Order, AA02, which states that no discrimination in the employment of workers in the defense industries of government because of race, creed, or color or national origin. And I added the link there for anybody who wants to go read it themselves. But as we know in history, was that really a statement for certain locations? And the next couple slides will talk about each location specifically that had parts of the Manhattan Project there. So first, we're going to start with Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And we all know that Oak Ridge, Tennessee is in the South. So we all know that Oak Ridge, Tennessee kind of had a little bit of more different take when it came to African Americans coming to their locations. So when they came from all over the United States, they immediately separate them because of Jim Crow laws. They were generally giving lower paying jobs and they live in hutments. Moreover, they did not allow African American scientists to work there. Thus, they weren't able to participate in things that they want to contribute to. Also, African Americans thought that when they be part of the Oak Ridge projects there, they were given higher wage and experience at most of the South, but it wasn't really the case. And here is a slide, video slide, of kind of like to close out this part of the section of Oak Ridge about discrimination that occurred in Oak Ridge. If somebody would mind playing on their end, because I think you can't hear it from mine.
Right, I'll go ahead and cue that up.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make you presenter again.
Okay.
Oops. Okay, it should prompt you now.
Okay. Share my screen. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my screen again. All right, let me lower this out the way. Okay, perfect. All right. So moving from the south, we're heading to the west coast to Hanford, Washington. And Hanford, Washington was a site also for the Manhattan Project. There we had DuPont Company. It was a contractor that was instructed to construct facilities to assist with the project. Between the years of 1943 and 1945, 15,000 African Americans were hired as essential workers to work on the plutonium production of fuel for Fat Man. So basically the facilities. However, again, racism discrimination followed. And many thought that because they relocated from the South to the West Coast, that it wouldn't matter to them. It will be a relief basically to them. But many, it didn't work that way. The only location in the Tri-City area of Washington was Pasico, which Pasico couldn't really handle the huge growth of people, so they created one barrack for them for all the 15,000 people, so people had to find other locations to live. Furthermore, the racism followed where they couldn't be able to eat in certain places where other people was able to eat, soda fountains. They definitely had a lot more crime for as being arrested. 25% between the 1940s was arrested because of unprobable cause. So one young lady mentioned that, you know, the Hanford site or Hanford, Washington to her felt like the Mississippi of the North, which was a very strong statement knowing that they wasn't in the South anymore. And here is another video to kind of end that portion of Hanford.
Okay, I'm setting that one up. Okay, Sydney, it should be about to make you presenter.
And share my screen. Perfect. Lower this again. There you go. So also at Hanford, I forgot to add that they also didn't have Black scientists there because it was only labor type jobs. So going to the Midwest, we are at the University of Chicago Met Lab in Illinois. This is primarily one of the sites that had a large number of African-American scientists that worked on the Manhattan Project. Commonly known big names, Dr. Ernest J Wilkins and Dr. Ralph Gardner Chavis, who assisted Enrico Fermi on the plutonium research critical to the development of the production of fissionable nuclear materials. And I couldn't really find more information than that, but it kind of, even the gentleman that was in the video previously mentioned that majority of the African-American scientists were usually in the northern areas. Also, kind of on the East Coast, but northern, we have Columbia University in New York. Like Chicago, they house many Black scientists and technicians. James Ford, who was a lab assistant, worked at the Nash Garage building, where he researched of gaseous diffusion of processes for separating uranium isotopes occurred. And lastly, we have Los Alamos, New Mexico. African-American scientists from both Columbia University and the Chicago Met Lab contributed to the works at Los Alamos. I couldn't personally find any records of them actually living and working on site during the creation of the bomb, but definitely after World War II, a large number of them did relocate to Llano community to find acceptance in both career and culturally. One gentleman, he was a nuclear engineer, mentioned that he finally felt like a real citizen. He was quoted from an Ebony magazine back in the 1950s for the Sacred City of Death. He mentioned that in Ebony magazine, which is a Black magazine. So this is this video is basically showing the after the bombs happened, majority of them actually didn't know what they were working on. So that should show you like kind of like the you contributed to something, but you're not really sure. So this is kind of driving that concept home for this video here.
Great, and I'm about to start this video, and we're getting some comments from people that are having trouble seeing the videos, and I'm getting other comments from people that are seeing the videos. So I'm not sure what the issue is, but I will say that this entire session with the videos included is being recorded and will be posted through the HPS webpage. So I'm going to go ahead and run your last video here.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. Oops, I'm getting an error. Okay, here we go. Okay, Sydney, it should be prompting you to be presenter.
Yes. All right, that's the last video for the presentation. So you won't have any other videos you have to watch, but hopefully if you could hear them and see them, hopefully it kind of drives what I'm trying to say home for you. So despite of what you've kind of learned from the slides I've displayed to you, that regardless of the executive order 8802 that FDR released, we can see that there were discrimination and inclusion issues that have affected many from interacting with this field. But above all, for regardless of what's going on, Black excellence under discrimination still occurred. And this section is basically talking about all the people that was involved in the Manhattan Project that you may not have heard of. So, of course, another big name, I mentioned him before, Dr. Ernest J Wilkins Jr. He was a prominent mathematician and physicist at the University of Chicago Met Lab. Like I mentioned before, he collaborated with Arthur Compton and Enrico Fermi to research methods of producing fissile nuclear materials. However, he was unaware of the purpose of his research until the bombs occurred. Also, he was left behind because he was unable to go to Oak Ridge for the studies because they didn't allow African Americans there. So he worked with Dr. Wigner to create the Wigner-Wilkins concept, which was published later on in the 1940s. After his Met Lab experience, he became the second African American to be elected in the National Academy of Engineering. And later, before his passing, he became a visiting scientist and distinguished fellow at the Argonne National Laboratory. But of course, we have unsung heroes, or what I consider unsung heroes, of the heroes that you have not heard of before. We have Dr. William J Knox. He also has a brother who was involved in the projects, but he was particularly a chemist, and he was a graduate of Harvard University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He worked with uranium hexafluoride gas as a researcher on the Manhattan Project. He also became a section leader for the corrosion section of the Manhattan Project. He later worked at Eastman Kodak and founded the Rochester Urban League, and he worked at North Carolina A&T University, which is at HBCU in North Carolina. And Dr. Carolyn Parker, she was a physicist for the Dayton Project. To me, she's a true hidden figure because she was a Black woman who took a part of the Dayton Project to help develop the production of plutonium used in the Manhattan Project. Sadly, she passed away doing her doctorate degree, but I still call her a doctor because she would have gotten her doctorate degree. In 2008, NIOSH considered that the condition that she died from was a occupational risk from working with plutonium. And the next two slides is something I want the audience to do their own research. I gave you 3 people, and I want you to take 3 people and research on. So these are some of the individuals that I researched that have done some things with the Manhattan Project. And this is something you can share with either if you're in academics with your students or with your coworkers, or if you're very active in your state chapters, talk about these individuals sometime in talks or meetings. So here's one slide with some awesome people. And here's another slide with some great people that was part of this project. So here's another quote that I have for the last section of this presentation, which is, success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life, but as the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed. And this is basically after the Manhattan Project, African Americans who pushed steel to be a driving force for nuclear physics, health physics, such like that. So we have Dr. Sirlean Jackson. She earned her PhD in nuclear physics. She also served as the 18th president of the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. She also became the first Black woman to earn her doctorate degree in physics from MIT. In 1995, she was appointed by President Clinton as a chairman of the NRC. She contributed to the enhancement of regulatory effectiveness. She became well awarded 45 honorary doctorate degrees. She also was honored by President Barack Obama when he was in office as well. And that was just an overview of her. So please take more time to research her because she has a lot more that I couldn't add to this presentation that I think would be great for definitely young African Americans who are early in this field like me. So for somebody in my age bracket, we have Dr. Marina Robinson Snowden. She has her PhD in nuclear engineering. She earned her degree becoming the first Black woman from MIT to receive a nuclear engineering degree. She currently serves as a senior engineer at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Lab Physics Laboratory. She paved her way by joining the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and National Nuclear Security Administration Fellowships. We have, again, another Black woman. Her name is Dr. Sierra Civils. She was the first Black woman to earn her doctorate degree in nuclear engineering from the University of Michigan. She also works at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. And I quoted her from a presentation she took, she was a part of when it was talking about representation. And she stated that representation is important to me. There's no better way to reach students than to be standing in front of the classroom. You need to be able to have that confidence to know that even though there are doubters, you can do it. And lastly, we have Dr. Kalisa Villafanda. She's a PhD from nuclear physics. She became a first Black woman last year to earn her doctorate degree in nuclear physics from Florida State University. She does aspire to become a medical physicist and specialize in cancer research, and she's currently a process engineer for Intel Corporation. And there are many other great African Americans who are contributing to this field. Again, like I mentioned before, take time to research who they are. And if you work with some, give them their flowers while they're still here. And lastly, you never know which experience of life is going to be of value. You got to leave yourself open to the hidden opportunities. So what can you do to help with Black representation in this field? I thought of 3 things that to me as a young Black woman in this field would love to see more of. For one, mentor. Mentor a student, mentor an employee. As a student, being able, if I'd known about this field early, it wouldn't took me as long to become a health physicist. And also as an employee, encourage your employee to go to meetings, to go to different events that could use their presence being there. Exposure. Expose this field to African American students at historically Black colleges and universities and underserved secondary schools. A lot of students, especially for me being a graduate from an HBCU, I did not know about this field until I was in my master's degree program. Again, if I'd known about it before, I would have been pursuing this field a long time ago. Underserved secondary schools. I'm from Liv City, North Carolina, a small town where the school system is not as great as others. If I had been exposed to a health physicist then, that would put something in my mind like, wow, I didn't even know this was an option. And lastly, understanding, be compassionate. That's basic human nature. There's a lot going on right now. We have COVID, we're stuck at home, we can't do anything. On top of that, we turn on the TV and we see things changing in front of our eyes every single day. So just be compassionate, watch what you say. If you see a person of color that you work with, pull them to the side, say, hey, are you okay? That one word, are you okay, means the world, because you have no idea what's going on in their mind, how they're feeling, and how that one statement can change their whole day. So at the end, you are enough. Regardless of what efforts are you making, you can see that during the Manhattan Project, they were pounded with discrimination and racism, but they still became a driving force for people like me to be a health physicist and even others to become nuclear engineers or radiochemists or radiopharmacists. So you are enough and your effort means the world to everybody. And here's my contact information and my references. So thank you so much for giving me the time to present to you today. So hopefully I didn't take too much time.
Thank you so much, Sydney. We're actually right about perfect on time. Most of the questions I think are actually going to be more fitting for the panel session, if my colleague agrees. The other thing is just a couple of comments about how very interesting your presentation was. There was a lot of new information there for some of us. So thank you very much for that. So then our next speaker will be Bei Chu, And before I read her bio, she was the lead driver behind the organization of the content of this session. She kept us all on track and organized. So special thanks to Bay for keeping us going. Fantastic. Bay is the technical radiochemistry specialist at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City. She has worked in the Department of Medical Health Physics at Memorial Sloan Kettering for 12 years after she earned her master's degree in environmental and occupational health science from Hunter College. She manages and supervises junior health physicists to ensure the safe use of radionuclide therapy among patients in clinic and oversees the radioactive waste disposal program. She is an Asian American woman and will be identifying ways to foster diversity and inclusion in the field of health physics in her presentation.
Nicole, thank you so much for the introduction. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the HPS Planning Committee and the group of speaker and panelists for really making this session possible. Kendall and Sydney are great speakers for me to have to follow, but I'm going to give it my all before our program break. My name is Bay. As Nicole mentioned, I'm going to be looking at where we are now and what we can do to really foster diversity and inclusion in health physics. Hi, y'all. How are you doing? This is Bay again. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So this presentation is going to be interactive, and I'm going to be asking for your input as we dig into the challenges of workplace diversity and explore areas of inclusion. But ultimately, I really want to understand where we're at in order for us to think of strategies where we can utilize going forward in our profession. So now, during these strange times, your office and colleague may look a little bit different. But I want you to think about your work office pre-COVID, who you're working with, and honestly answer this question for me. Do you work in a diverse environment?
All right, I'm going to put the poll up.
And we're able to see the results of what you guys answer after this question.
Yep. We have 55% voted so far. Still going.
Great.
59% voted, 60% voted. You tell me when you want me to cut it off.
All right, I think we're past the 50% cutoff, so let's cut it off.
Okay, we had 69% voted, and the results were, let me see, share the results. I'm not sure, Bay, if you can see them, but everybody else can. It's 69% yes and 31% no.
Great. That's wonderful. Many of you guys answered, over 69%, and we have a majority that said they do work in a diverse environment. So that's wonderful to hear. So now in the next question.
Okay.
Was there really a time in your career when you felt discriminated? This would be a time when you felt like you were treated badly or unjustly due to your age, gender, race, religion, or any other personal characteristics. So the poll is open. Please answer your questions, yes or no. We'll wait until we hit after the 50% mark of respondents, and then we'll close it off and see where we're at. Majority yes or no.
Okay. We've already had 71%.
Wow, great.
vote.
I love the participation.
Okay, can you see the results? I've shared them on the screen. I don't know if the organizers can see them.
I can't see any of it.
Okay, it's 51% yes and 49% no.
Great, okay, so we're kind of in the middle between people who feel discriminated and people who have not felt discriminated anytime in their career. So, maybe we'll work on kind of changing that a little bit more and as we go through the presentation. So in a diverse workplaces, there are challenges that were identified by Fathinger. Minority groups feel undervalued, like they can't speak up and rarely do. Majority group feels alienated by efforts to be inclusive. Cultural difference can also create conflicts, causing it difficult for the teams to solve work problems. And another very common challenge that exists not only in the workplace, but everywhere else are cliques. But these closed networks in the workplace really diminish efforts for collaboration and sometimes progress. Now, to overcome some of these challenges of workplace diversity. I'm going to be really diving into some areas that touch upon them in more detail: respect, belonging, empowering, and also progression. Now, respect is the key for a healthy workplace, and it starts with really acceptance. It's important to understand that everyone is unique. We need to recognize individual differences and practice mutual respect for qualities and experience that are different from our own. This can be done by not insulting people, not criticizing or demeaning others, and actively listening. Respect in the workplace increases productivity, improves communication, and also promotes teamwork. Now, for this next question, do you feel that your unique attributes, traits, characteristics, skills, and experiences and background are valued at work? And you guys can answer yes or no. The poll is open. We're going to wait till we hit that past the 50% threshold of respondents and then kind of cut it off and see where it lies.
Okay, it jumped up to 66% voting really quickly, and the answer was 86% yes and 14% no.
Great. So the results were in. We got about 80% people who ended up voting saying that yes, they do feel that those skills are really appreciated and valued at work. So that's really great to hear. And you know, we still have more to overcome and also help those 14% of the people who didn't feel that their traits and attributes were really valued at work. So another question, do you mask or downplay any aspect of your physical, cultural, spiritual, or emotional self at work? The poll is open. And respond to this honestly.
Okay, we're at 65% have voted, and so we'll share the results. And the results are 58% yes and 42% no.
All right. So with this question, we see that it's kind of almost at an even balance. Maybe we need to push it over to more the positive side a little bit more. All right. Sorry. So how do you demonstrate respect to diversity? Understanding your own biases, bringing together diverse groups for innovation, respect religious holidays, listen to opinions, concerns, and ideas of others, help to create a welcoming environment. Now, in this question, you can choose more than one answer, so don't feel like you're limited at all, but please answer honestly so we can really determine what we'd have to look at.
This one's taking folks a little bit longer to respond, but they're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay, so I see that many people are thinking about it. The response is not as quick, but you know, I'm glad that you guys are really thinking about this and reading through the question.
Okay, at 61% voted, here are the results.
All right.
Understand your own biases is 73%. Bring together diverse groups for innovation is 49%. Respect religious holidays is 59%. Listen to opinions, concerns, and ideas of others is 94%. And help create a welcoming environment is 86%.
Thank you all for responding. Our big ones that we got ways to really respect diversity in the workplace is listening to opinions, concerns, and ideas of others, and help creating a warm and welcoming environment. And that's what we're going to really move towards. All right, belonging. So by creating a workplace culture where people feel a sense of belonging, individuals are able to bring their full self to work. Everyone's voices can be heard. And this was also reiterated in the last question that you guys responded so strongly to as well. 94% of people saying listen to other people's opinions. Really appreciating other person's unique background so that way we can break down some of these barriers. Now, was there ever a time at work that you ever felt left out, either when engaging in work activities or socially? And answer this honestly, yes or no.
Okay, sorry, I had a little technical issue. Here we go.
The poll is open. I'm just waiting for the responses to get over 50%.
Yep, we made it to 63% and have responded. And
right.
the answers were 56% yes and 44% no.
Okay. So thanks for the 66% that responded. It was right in between with about 50% yes, and also another, the other half saying no as well. Now for this question, is there solidarity between generations? In other words, do you see that everyone is close, able to relate and depend on each other regardless of generational gaps or age?
Okay, this one was quick. We're already up to 65%.
Great.
And the results were 54% yes and 46% no.
Okay. Thanks for the 65% of people who responded to this question. It looks like it's kind of split in the middle for 54% saying yes and also 44% saying no, that there isn't solidarity between generations. When we move a little bit further towards these strategies, we'll talk more about solidarity between generations. So how do you develop a sense of belonging? Do you show employees that their work has meaning, set team goals, get input, recognize results, celebrate successes together? Now for this question, you can choose more than one answer. For these questions taking a little bit longer than the yes and no questions. And I appreciate the time reading through this and really thinking about it. Okay, we close the poll.
We had 63% of the folks responded, and the results are: show employees their work has meaning, 80%, set team goals, 54%, get input, 79%, recognize results, 89%, and celebrate successes together, 79%.
All right. Thank you for the 63% of the people who ended up responding. We have a lot of high areas in almost all of them, showing employees that their work has meaning, getting input, recognizing results. And it doesn't have to be doing one of these things to give a sense of belonging. You know, they can all be collaborative of each other. So they're very high responses for all of these. Now, inclusion. Empowering gives individuals the ability to be the best they can be, or, you know, you've heard of the Army slogan, be all that you can be. So this provides an environment where people can feel free to really participate in engaged workplace with valuable input and also increase productivity. Now, have you faced any obstacles in your career progression or ability to participate fully? The poll is open. Just going to wait for the 50% mark of respondents.
This one was quick. So we had 62% responding, and our results were yes, 53%, and no, 47%.
Okay. So there were about 62% of people who responded rather quickly on this question if they face obstacles in their career. And for some of us, you really probably, you know, this might be the current state that you're at right now. Or some people you have to really go back and kind of think about early on in your career and everything. But it was kind of split right in the middle. Now, for this question, do you feel that you have sufficient support to develop your skills and progress your career? This is just an extension of the last question for the support that you currently need to progress your career, or a time when you were just starting off and really seeing, really looking back and seeing if you did have the support.
Great. Okay, we're already over 60%. We made it to 62%.
Great.
And the results were yes, 78%, and no, 22%.
Okay. All right, so we had same 62% as the last question. Thank you for those 62% of people who ended up responding to this question. For this, majority of the people did respond yes. We had about more 70% that responded that they do get sufficient support in order to progress their career. And this is kudos really to the leadership in our field and also the people that you guys have worked with in the past and currently. Now for the last question, what could your employer do to better support you? I'm going to have the poll opened up and just read through the answers. Be clear on job responsibilities and accountability, give you productive and challenging work, establish effective communication skills, encourage and reward initiative and creativity, and mix up teams. And again, for this question, you can choose more than one answer.
All right, it's building quickly now.
Great.
Okay. We had 59% voted, and the results were be clear on job responsibilities and accountabilities, 56%. Give you productive and challenging work, 53%. Establish effective communication systems, 68%. Encourage and reward initiative and creativity, 63%. And mix up teams, 24%.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the 59% of people who ended up responding to this question. The big ones were establishing effective communication systems and also encouraging with reward initiative and also creativity. So now, we can understand as supervisors, as leaders and managers, what we need to do to also support our diverse community as well moving forward. Now, progression. Progression is the last element in building an inclusive workplace culture, this process of moving towards an advanced state. And I feel like a broken record, but is also critical to recognize, understand, and also respect that there are differences between all of us and use those differences to really leverage this field. We really use those differences as an advantage to leverage our field. Now for this question, have you faced or witnessed prejudice or discrimination in your workplace setting? The poll is open. Yes or no question, but yes or no answer. Oops, sorry.
Okay, it's 61% reporting. We have results of 65% yes and 35% no.
Okay. All right, so the results are in, and you can see that for the vast majority, 65% of people have not witnessed or felt discriminated at their work setting. Now, what characteristic traits, contributions, and behaviors are most valued and rewarded at your organization? Polls open. Teamwork, honesty, flexibility and adaptability, willingness to listen and learn, self-reliance. And you can choose more than one answer as well.
Okay, we're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I cut it off at 61%, which is a good response. The answers were teamwork, 66%, honesty, 50%, flexibility and adaptability, 82%, willingness to listen and learn, 49%, and self-reliance, 55%.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the 61% of the people who responded to this question. The big one that kind of popped up was really flexibility and adaptability, and we do need to be able to have that in our field and kind of moving forward as well. Now, all these poll questions are recorded, are going to be kept safe. They're confidential, so we don't know how you responded or anything, but it allows us ability to really see from our audience and you guys here with us today, kind of, you know, what you're feeling in your own workplace. So we can have kind of like that live, raw data right now to kind of look at before we move really into ways and strategies to be inclusive. Now, I'm just listing a few inclusion strategies, but this will really help you think about what you can do in your workplace to kind of create positive changes, or what we can do as a whole in our profession. We should embrace ethnic and multicultural differences. And this means creating a workplace where different perspectives are valued and embraced, always being considerate and sensitive to the boundaries and expectations of others. We need to be educated to improve our own cultural awareness. And this will really help colleagues appreciate your sensitivity and effort. The workplace should be more welcoming and productive. And we've heard this response also coming from the polls earlier with personal and cultural boundaries. Lastly, it's also important to observe tradition, celebration, and holidays from other cultures. And this was also a response that we got from the polls earlier as well. Now, another inclusion strategy, it's unlikely that problems really won't arise in the workplace. So it's important that decisions and problem solving is done as a unit, hearing from a variety of different voices and experience that really will allow you to tackle workplace issues together. And leaders can really enforce the importance of understanding everyone's perspective while also building team morale. Now, this was brought up also in Sydney's presentation and touched upon a little bit in Kendall's presentation as well. Now, the landscape of health physics is changing, and we're seeing more younger professionals in the field, and mentoring can increase intergenerational solidarity. The younger generation is a key component to the success of the field, and the knowledge really needs to be passed down. Mentoring will expedite development and increases the odds of success. Mentoring provides social cohesion among generations to understand and relate to each other. I really had the privilege of learning from some great legends in our field, particularly Ray Johnson, who recently passed away, but I still find myself learning every single day. This inclusion strategy fosters a supportive environment between different generations. Now, what I've learned in my years in health physics is that it's less about the radiation and probably more about people. We need to continue to work with people, educating leaders about the impacts that their decisions have on diverse employees. We need to use real life feedback and opinions gathered in focus group surveys and have real conversations. So this special session is just the start, but it's not the end. So I leave you all today with two quotes that spoke to me and summarize how we can foster diversity and inclusion in health physics. For Mother Teresa, together we can do great things. Our strength lies in differences and not similarities. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Bae. That was so interesting, and it was really interesting to see everyone's different responses to those polls too. So I'm excited that you included that. I don't think there's a specific question based on your presentation. We do have a couple that I think would be good for the panel. And so I think, and we're actually right on time, the Secretariat agrees for our break.
Yes, I think that's perfect. And we can leave, and we intend to leave the link open. We're going to mute ourselves so we don't have any open mic issues. but we'll mute ourselves and we'll keep the connection going. We welcome everybody to stay connected. I think we're scheduled to come back at 3:50 Eastern. So the current hour, wherever you are, the current hour that we are in at 50 minutes past or 10 minutes of, depending on how you like to view such things. And I think we're good. Alex, unless you have any other words you'd like to say.
No, I think we're good for now. And I'll be happy to have everyone back in 18 minutes. I will talk to them then.
Everybody, we have a few things going on. First, you see our sponsor slide there. I mentioned this at the very beginning of the day. These are making it possible for us to have this meeting. I'm going to run a quick video from Oral, our title sponsor today. And before I do that, though, I will remind you, for those of you who haven't found it yet, the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel is where you can type in the questions. We're not monitoring the chat, we are monitoring the questions. And so Nicole and Alex will be monitoring those and will then feed your questions to the panelists. So with that, I will go ahead and start this video, and then we'll turn it over to you, Alex.
Since 1948, ORAU has provided high-quality radiation safety and health physics instruction through its professional training programs. During that time, we have educated more than 30,000 students, including scientists, physicians, engineers, and regulators. Continuing our tradition of excellence, ORAU is proud to present PTP Online, an ever-growing library of online radiological training courses. These courses go above and beyond the average slide turner presentation. Each self-paced course is mobile-friendly and is divided into modules full of helpful illustrations, videos, and interactive exercises. No travel budget? Can't travel because of COVID-19? No problem. Our courses offer a high level of technical quality and effective training methods without the added cost and inconvenience of travel. Need continuing education credits? We've got you covered. Our courses offer varying levels of CECs so that you can keep your certifications up to date. What happens if you get stuck or need help with a complex topic? Enrollment in a PTP online course also includes individualized communication with the same instructors who teach our in-person classes. For more information and to enroll today, please visit www.orau.org/PTP.
Okay, over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you all, and welcome back. I see that most of you made it through the break and are still with us. My name is Alex Brandel. Together with Dr. Martinez, I'm co-moderating this afternoon, and it is my honor to lead you through this second part of this afternoon's special session. First of all, a big shout out to our presenters from earlier. Those were great presentations, and I feel they really provide the basis for what we want to do in this second sub-session this afternoon, and that is discuss some of the problems and the experiences that people face and people see in the society, in HPS, but also in our profession in general. And so my hope for the start of this afternoon was that the three panelists who have not been introduced earlier, that they would have a brief period, 3 to 5 minutes, where they could introduce themselves and talk about some of these experiences that we then want to discuss, and maybe we have questions, and they could provide us with some insights, some recommendations as to how we could go forward as a community, as a society, and as humanity. I would appreciate it if the panelists could keep their cameras on, and so that the audience can see who is in the picture and who is with us. And if I may, maybe I start with Dr. Manglass. Lisa?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Lisa Manglass. I'm actually technically not doctor yet. We have to be careful about that one. I just am finishing up my PhD at Clemson University. And I had just started a position as an assistant professor of physics in the physics and engineering department at Francis Marion University. Here I support an undergraduate health physics program, which I'm very excited to be doing. One of the things I'm very excited about with this job, and it's one of the reasons why some of these issues are even more important to me than they were before, is that our university really serves a very diverse region of our state in South Carolina. And our university is very proud of the fact that we try very hard to look like the region that we serve. So we have a very high portion of Black students and other students of color too at our school, and a very high portion of first generation college students. So it's very important to me that we're building a profession and community that's going to be supportive as I keep encouraging these students to go into health physics. Prior to coming here, I worked for Sena's Consultants and later Arcadis as an environmental consultant in the Denver area as an environmental health physicist for about 7.5 years. Before that, I was an alumnus of Colorado State University's health physics program. And before that, the University of Georgia in physics. So I'm here today because I'm really interested in trying to support these initiatives and finding ways to make the things that we've said we really want to do reality. I'm very interested in not being lip service, but really being actual actionable changes within our society. And I'm really optimistic about the support we're getting to try to do that. Is that good? Is that?
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Manglass. Sorry about that. Maybe I may ask Dr. Billa to introduce himself as the next panelist.
Good afternoon. I hope you guys can hear me well. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to thank everyone in the panel as well as the presenters and also the HPS Society for giving me this opportunity to be part of this panel. I currently work as the assistant professor and also I'm the chair of the technology department at Alcorn State University, located kind of to give a better idea, we are 90 miles away from Jackson, Mississippi. So if you are looking for a place you would like to cite in any presentation, middle of nowhere, you can quote our university. It goes very well. So that is where I'm located. And I kind of initiated the health physics program here and have been here. I started as an instructor, then became an assistant professor, then eventually became tenured faculty. Then now I am the chairperson of the department. Been working with a lot of African American students, and I'm very proud. As of today, we helped at least close to 50 students to secure jobs in the nuclear industry, especially the energy-owned nuclear power plants. And also lately we started new collaboration with Los Alamos National Lab. And in the last 4 or 5 years, we had 14 students who secured jobs in New Mexico, who are, our students. And other proud thing I would like to bring is 85% of my students are females, which is, something, especially in the radiation world, it's kind of like men dominated. We all know that we attend the meeting, we see more men than women. So that is something I'm always proud of. And a few other things, we work closely with Alex and Tom Johnson. Colorado State has been very helpful. We have few students who I think they are really doing well. They go to Colorado State to continue their education. And every year we go to Colorado State for some training in neutron detection and other things. What we do not have here, Colorado State has been very helpful, and we started new collaboration with University of Utah as well. My educational background, I'm first a physics major. I came here from India in 2000, long time ago. I have been here for more than 20 years. And then I attended University of Minnesota. Then I attended Idaho State University. Then I attended Jackson State University. This is where all my education is. So I have a spectrum of different areas when it comes to education. I have minor in electrical engineering, physics, then chemistry, then health physics. So kind of, you know, it helped me to survive in the radiation world. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Dr. Villa. Thank you, Jeremiah. Our third new panelist this afternoon is Dr. Michael Bellamy. Dr. Bellamy, may I ask you for a quick introduction as well?
Oh, a quick one. Okay. So you can call me Michael. I'm a health physics researcher in the medical physics department at Memorial Sloan Kettering. That's a recent role. Previous to that, I spent 10 years at Oak Ridge National Lab working in radiation protection. I have lots of research interests. I love the field. I love health physics. I'm interested in radiation transport research, computational dosimetry, regulatory science, and now radiation epidemiology through some big studies. Why I'm here, I think a true statement is that to whom much is given, much will be required. And I feel like I've been particularly blessed in my schooling and in my career, and based upon that and this very supportive community, I think I owe a great debt to the health physics community, and events like this sort of continue to inspire me, and I'd just love to be part of this continued energy and continued sort of supportive type of activities. The presentations today have been really wonderful. In particular, Sydney's presentation was amazing. It was very inspirational, and it actually hits really close to home. She spoke about Dr. Wilkins, and then it was a really shocking insert for me because Dr. Ron Mickens was my advisor, and he was a mentee of Dr. Wilkins, and then under him, I was inspired to actually return to Oak Ridge National Lab to complete my PhD in nuclear engineering, which ironically and amazingly was the same institution which initially closed its doors to Dr. Wilkins. So it's a snapshot and a reminder of where we were, where we are, and hopefully through activities like this, where we're going. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mike. And the other panelists or the other speakers, presenters that we invited to be part of our panel discussion this afternoon, of course, our speakers from earlier today. We've introduced their scientific and professional backgrounds already, but I was hoping to maybe ask them why they or how they feel about the topic at hand, about diversity, inclusion, and equity. Kendall, may I start with you?
Sure you can. How do I feel about it? Well, this is huge. I think that it's something that as a professional society, we need to tackle head on. I think it is something that within our society, we have some members that are not particularly thrilled with this idea. And that is a challenge that I hope that the presentations this morning are going to help overcome. Because as a female in the Health Physics Society and active at meetings for years, I've personally been in situations that were not professional, that were not appropriate, and to hear other members of our society saying, oh, we don't need a behavior policy, oh, we don't have problems, that hurts me, that angers me, and I know we have issues and I know we have problems. So that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm on the task force. That's why I'm pushing for change.
Thank you, Kendall. I really appreciate that, and I agree in every aspect and with the importance of that topic. And I have a few more questions, hopefully, in the course of the next hour or so, that will push in exactly that direction. I think our polls showed quite a picture earlier this afternoon as well. But maybe I can turn to Ms. Moore and see how she feels she wants to contribute to these initiatives.
I think for me, for one, I'm just 28 years old, so I'm super young compared to the average amount of people who's actually a part of the chapter. I'm like super young, but I think that I come from a different perspective because I'm seeing the effects from what happened a long time ago, and we're slowly getting to the point of, you know what, we need more of this. Sadly, this conversation should have happened a long time ago. Personally, for me, we should be at a point where conversations like this should be rare. It should be like, what do you mean you don't have diversity? What do you mean? It should be more of like, what, instead of like, you know what, we should include that. We need to, as a whole, we need to change that narrative, because that's the only way we can move forward. Because this year alone, we lost so many inspirational, monumental people who were a part of this society. We really have. And in order for us to continue their legacy, we have to be more inclusive. We have to bring people together. We have to join groups and be more diverse, because like was mentioned earlier, that's the only way we can bring new ideas. That's the only way we can bring new bright people and have people understand that your efforts does matter to us. And for me, because I'm a student and I work full time, I see both hands of it. So if we can really come together as a society and make it where these conversations are no longer had, but we actually put these actions into real forces, then we can really make a difference.
Absolutely, and thank you. Ms. Chu, you brought some of those issues to the forefront, I felt, earlier this afternoon. And I do want to come back to some of those numbers that we saw here very shortly. But maybe you could detail a little more about your interest in those specific topics as well.
So, you know, the reason for the polls, I really wanted to see our audience, and I wanted to really understand where everyone's really coming from and everything. I mean, we're all in such diverse areas, in power and research, in the medical field, everywhere, you know, and it really allowed people to kind of have a voice, so that way we can kind of understand it. Me personally, my voice and my experience in my area, you know, like I was one of the, you know, few younger females in our group. You know, that's how it began. And now there's 3 women in our group, which is a testament to it, you know, and then the other people in our group are all men. But even my young girls that took a look at it, you know, they saw a picture of our entire group saying, "Mommy, how come there are only 3 girls there?" And I said, that's a lot. That's actually quite a bit of females that are represented in our group. And, you know, it's really inspiring to me that my 3-year-old, you know, I'll ask her what she wants to do. And she says, "I want to be you, Mommy. I want to be." And I said, "Does that mean you want to be a health physicist as well?" So I, you know, like being a young mother, I want to be able to kind of lay the foundations for an environment that is welcoming to young girls, you know, of any color, of any kind of disability or anything, you know. So I think that we're taking such huge steps, you know, in kind of making that happen, having these real important discussions, really, you know, sharing our experiences too, I think are really enriching. So I hope that we do lead towards that direction. We have the poll of responses that we can kind of dig into much more deeply and kind of look at those responses that we got from the audience. And thank you for everyone really for participating in it. It was really great. So I hope that we can really move towards that. And that's the reason why I brought up some of those questions.
I think they were great questions, and we had really interesting results. At least to me, they were interesting. And in fact, that gets me to my first question. I didn't really have time to have them sink in the answers. There were quite a few questions, but one thing I noticed was the first question was whether or not the audience felt that they were in a diverse environment, and a good number, 2/3 or something like that, I seem to recall, felt that they indeed were in a diverse environment. At the same time, when the question came whether or not they felt there were obstacles in their professional development, whether they felt potentially discriminated, there was still a significant part, or it was almost 50-50 of the audience that responded to those polls that did have feelings like that. Do you, as the panelists, think, or do you have a feeling as to where that impression might come from in the workplace? Kendall, you're smiling. Maybe I can start with you.
Well, I'll start with, in my current workplace, I don't have that issue. Fortunately, that's a part of my past. In my first job, I was the first female radiation protection, radiation safety specialist, or whatever we were called back then. And I literally had the guys looking at me and going, "You can't do this." And I'm like, okay. And it just over time and doing the same job that they were doing, they realized, like, oh, yeah, she can do this. But no, I absolutely faced that years ago, but not at this point.
Well, but that
like
might be an
I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I would just like to add to what Kendall said. That's the same for me. And my current workplace is actually the first place where I actually feel that is diverse and I feel represented, where I don't have to do above and beyond for people to understand that I can do my job just as good as they are. And for me, previously, before, I was never considered off the bat a radiation technician first. They always assume me as an admin assistant or somebody who works at a business office instead of being a STEM woman in STEM. So I think now with where I work, it's like they're aware and they want to make sure, you know what, in order to, to continue the positivity, we need to push this message and we need to keep pushing the message.
So
Did I hear? Yes.
Just to kind of answer your question, I think in a lot of, I don't think we're like we're so bad off in our society, like there were some really good positive responses that we did get. Like Sydney did mention, she's in a diverse group right now. Kendall has seen that where she is right now in the profession and everything, it's gone a long way. And same with me, it's gone a really long way. So maybe at one point in time, at the beginning, or, we did feel that, there was a lot of obstacles. And that's why there was that huge response on that end and everything like that. But I think that real change is happening. I think good directioning is also going on right now and everything. And those are positive things that I think we should also recognize as well, and take the negatives and really learn from them, grow from them in our future experiences, and also realizing our, subconscious biases that we may also have too, and kind of checking it at the door before we go in and go into our profession.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And there was a related comment by our audience as well. And they said, well, we didn't really clearly define when we asked the question as to how we would define diverse, right, or diversity. And so environments, professional environments might be diverse in one sense, but not so much maybe in another way. I did have a follow-on question to that though, because I felt, I mean, it could be a time issue, right? That times have changed, maybe in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and I hoped it would have. And I think we've seen certain changes and improvements over time. But something that both Kendall and Ms. Moore seemed to indicate was maybe it was also early in their career. Do you feel that as a woman, as an African American, as a person of color, do you have to prove yourself more than others potentially? I see lots of nods, so maybe maybe
I can make a comment just in terms of like, I even in my consulting career had a pretty supportive and good work environment, but you know, there were times where even just silly things, you know, I worked as an environmental consultant, there was a lot of outdoor work, and I obviously went into that profession knowing what that was, but there were times where, you know, I got pulled aside and asked if I was sure I really wanted to go, because, you know, it's really hard to be on an ATV all day, and things that my actually slightly more junior male colleague was never asked. I remember one time being at, we had a client, well, not a client, it was somebody who we were going to be going to a waste facility, and we were going to be doing some auditing, and the you know, the person who ran that facility ran into me right before I was going to be coming out a couple days later for the first time, right? And he ran into me at a Central Rocky Mountain chapter meeting where I'm giving a presentation. So obviously I'm dressed professionally to give a presentation, and looks and tells me, well, you know, make sure you don't wear shoes like that pointing to my heels when you come out to, you know, the landfill. Like, what? I'm not going to wear heels to a landfill, but, you know, there's a lot of thought that went into just how I dressed all the time, you know. There's a tremendous amount of effort that would go into how I presented myself with my clothes. I didn't just get up and put on a shirt and a tie and pants and walk out the door. You know, every single outfit had to be thought about, because even something as simple as dressing professionally to give a presentation could be interpreted as me not being capable of setting foot on a landfill somehow, you know. So
I see confirmative nods. Kendall.
Yeah, that, and I don't know that that's ever going to go away for me. I know, gosh, when I was in undergrad and a physics major, one of my classmates told me, oh, well, you'll be able to do whatever you want because you're a woman. And I, to this day, obviously, that was years ago. That still burns me up, still burns me up. And even recently at work, we had an issue with one piece of equipment, and I was working with our facilities director, and he's like, oh, well, we'll talk to the physicist. And I'm like, I'm a physicist. Like, I know you haven't had reason to know that, but I am. And that was recently. So there's some of that, I don't know that I'm going to be fortunate enough to see that really go away. There is, yeah, absolutely, as a woman, you have to think about, well, what am I wearing? How am I presenting myself? Because you're not being seen as the male equal. You're being seen as frequently as a sexualized version of something, and that's tough. And I don't know that that's going to go away.
Michael, as you know, kind of the contrast to the female experience. Do you think, or do you feel you have had similar experiences as an African American, where you feel you might have to prove yourself more often than other colleagues?
Not really. Again, I've been extremely blessed. I've always been in very supportive environments. I've always had a wonderful support system and wonderful mentors who who would advocate for me in many cases. So it's not. So, but I will say this, sometimes, I would kind of get up in the morning thinking, hey, boy, I better put on a tie for this, better put on a jacket. And I walk into a room with my colleagues and everyone's sort of dressed down, and I wonder, I never do, but I wonder, like, boy, if I dress like that, would I get the sort of same level of respect, right? So I kind of empathize a lot with with sort of putting a little bit more thought into my my professional experience. I think one of the complaints I have, and I don't know if you guys can agree, it's sometimes people sort of put you in two bins, right? Either you can walk on water or you're going to be sent to jail, right? So I always feel like, boy, it's a really slippery slope. Like any kind of I feel like sort of punitive actions against me might potentially be more severe because of that sort of bifurcation and how people would perceive a black male. So again, I try not to think about it too much. I try to think about science, and hopefully that'll be my guiding light. But yeah, it is a little bit distracting at some junctions.
Well, but I think that's exactly where we're trying to get to, right? And that the recognition that regardless of maybe you're really perceived as having dressed down or not being dressed appropriately, and apparently it happens that there are comments about it, right? So these are not feelings that come out of thin air, but just the fact that this is something that you think about, right, as you get up in the morning, as you get dressed in the morning. Maybe a white Caucasian male would not have those concerns and wouldn't feel that they need to have those concerns. And I think this really leads me into kind of my next question for the panel, and that is, I think it was Kendall earlier this afternoon who talked about possible blind spots that we might have. I'm a Caucasian male myself. I would like to know what my blind spots are, but I can't, right? And so, do you have any guidance or any pointers to us as a society as to things that we might do unconsciously or subconsciously that make you feel like that you have to dress differently, that you have to wear a tie and a shirt, right? That particular morning.
Sorry, who was the question directed to?
What do you think, or do you have any pointers to us as to what these subtle differences could be that we should pay attention to in our behaviors, in things that we say, that might make you feel differently?
I guess for me, it's more of it seems like it's more like generalizing, because anytime a woman comes in and, to me, I feel like, especially as a Black woman, I'm held to a higher standard regardless, because they automatically like, oh, I hope she's not trouble, because I'm like, I have experienced things, so I'm not trying to keep that as a reason why I should act a certain way. So you shouldn't hold that against me either, and I feel like a lot of times that happens where we just assume that, here's Kendall, she probably was the last person we hired. Like, you can't do that to people. And I think that's the problem of we're assuming it's the same attitude is the same way, whether it's gender, race, or sexuality. That's something that needs to change, because that's what kind of is why a lot of us feel that way, is is we always are generalizing. If I decide to dress down, like, oh, so you don't feel like being yourself today, and I'm sitting in front of my supervisor or something because he thinks something's wrong, because we're just held to a higher standard, and I think that's outrageous to me.
I think
So
it's
being
worthwhile
held
to
to a
think
higher
about.
standard. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You should finish your question to Sydney.
No, it wasn't a question. It was actually a comment, and I tried to summarize a little bit. So it's in what I understood you saying was actually that there was two things. One, that you felt you were being held to a higher standard, and two, kind of going hand in hand with that, that there was some stereotyping going on as well. Whether this is conscious or subconscious, I can't judge. I don't have your experience, but maybe that is something, I guess, as that point or as that guidance, that supervisors, others in the community, others in the society, could check themselves, self-reflect on a little more. Did you understand?
So I think it's worth examining the amount that I think the more privileged a person is, the more easy it is to dismiss things as, well, that's a long time ago and you shouldn't have to worry about that. And, when we talk about issues of race, for example, we still have people in the workforce right now who are of the age that they would have had to go to a segregated high school, right? Like, this isn't that far in the past. And, I'm a very proud and out member of the LGBTQ community, but until June 15th of this, I mean, not necessarily my specific institution, but until June 15th of this year, I could still have gotten fired in the state of South Carolina for letting someone know that I'm gay. Like, that's mind-boggling. And I don't think people think about it, because when you don't have to worry about how those things might affect your life and how those biases that people have could affect your life, it's easy to not realize that it's a big deal and that it's on someone's mind all the time. But a lot of these issues, even just issues with women in the workplace, it really wasn't that long ago. And so the seeds of a time where pretty strong biases and people not even being allowed in a building, there's still a lot of seeds of that in the society we have right now. So I think it's really important not to dismiss stuff as in the past as if it's something that we should be just completely over and doesn't exist anymore. It's non-existent, because the tendrils of that are still in our culture to this day.
And just to add one more thing to what she just said, especially for me and Lisa's age group, we're coming in wanting change. We want to see things differently for us. We're not going to just let somebody discriminate us or have somebody to just outright be biased to us. That's not going to happen. And I think that's another thing, is that you have to be understanding and have the open conversation. It may be so uncomfortable, but it's something that needs to be done.
And I think this is what we're trying to get to. What can we do? And that, I think, is a good step into kind of thinking about strategies and the future. I think it was Kendall earlier who showed some statistics about the number of women in the society, the number of persons of color in the society, and it seemed fairly obvious, right? If I remember correctly, this was somewhere around 70% Caucasian male, right? If we just take that number, that doesn't seem to be representative of or necessarily be representative of the population distribution in the country, right? So somewhere we're missing a significant fraction of women and minorities in our address. And before we get to our opportunities for encouraging students and professionals in the future, maybe, because it was a question earlier, maybe we can relate a little bit between representation and the topic of this afternoon session, which is inclusivity, equity, and diversity, I do believe that they go hand in hand. And if we're not equally represented, maybe we've done something wrong in the way we present ourselves. And one of the comments earlier was, well, maybe we should need to start in elementary school. And I agree, we need to start early. But what can we do not to have this stigma that, you know, maybe various fractions in the parts of the population don't want to join us, our society, our field, STEM in general.
Well, I'll jump in there. Within the Health Physics Society specifically, for those of the 206 that are still with us, and for those that are watching this as a video, what I would love is to never hear again that we don't need a behavior policy. I never want to hear that out of somebody's mouth again. We do. We are humans. We make mistakes. I've made mistakes. And there are things I'm not proud of that I've done at meetings. So I never want to hear that. We need to have the compassion and understanding for each other to say that while maybe this individual has lived this privileged life and has never had any issues within the Health Physics Society, that's great. I'm thrilled for you. But don't be so narrow-minded to think that your experience is identical to everybody else. And we also need, I'm trying to think about how to say this delicately enough, and I'm not sure that I can. We need our men to not look at our women as things to hit on when you're sitting at the pool and talking about health physics and having a great conversation about the science, to not be hit on and to be made to feel very uncomfortable and sexualized when the conversation was otherwise professional. And that's unacceptable, and that needs to change. If I could never hear about that happening again, that would be awesome. So there's two concrete things that I would love to never hear about again. I'll get off my soapbox.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Jeremiah, what do you think? How can we encourage, you know, your students, for example, to come to the field, to stay in the field?
That is a really good question, and I would like to put Sydney on the spot. In her presentation, she clearly mentioned if she had known about health physics earlier, she would have, she would have got her PhD by now and doing better things. I'm not saying right now she's not doing, but there are tons of kids, especially in the minority schools, who do not know about health physics, who think that that field is only for certain races. Unfortunately, I'm trying to be open because I deal with a lot of students whom I brought them out of that barrier and pushed them. You know, a lot of our students, so I don't have any problem sharing with that. Definitely, whatever has happened in their lives, we cannot really change. Simple example is my grandfather. He always told me, do not go into water to swim, because his sister drowned. I mean, it happened way in early 1900s or sometime. So he will make sure I don't go into water because of the bad experience he had in his life. I'm very sure some of these kids may have, or their parents had that experience. So as professionals, you know, we are here to help others, not like, you know, in a professional manner, how we can help others, how we can bring them out of that barrier. Simple things, you know, I had discussion with you. We brought few students to Colorado State, and after that, Alex and Tom were very nice to them. They were teaching them everything they needed. So they ended up going there. So that kind of, if I didn't do that, I'm not just boasting myself, I did that. Just someone put me there. If it was you, you would do the same. Just I was there in the right time. So someone should take that, and especially bigger schools like Clemson, yours, you guys should come forward to help these. Lot of HBCUs, they may not have a full health physics program there, but they have been involved with a lot of HP related coursework, research. So maybe you guys can start collaborating with some of these folks, and eventually you can get some students into your graduate programs as well. That is how we can increase this minority population moving up into their education, as well as, and also making them to be strongly involved with the health physics society. We can easily do that. I mean, all our students, the first day I tell them to do is, hey, first year it is free. When I say it is free, they will join right away. And I mean, I attended Health Physics Society meeting as a student, so I am kind of one who matriculated. Since 2005, I have been to every meeting, and I didn't meet you, but I met Tom many times when I was student standing with my poster. So those kind of experiences, someone has to take that initiative. I mean, as a professionals, sometimes we have to step into that and try to help the students. I mean, Sydney is the right example. I mean, in this little panel, I can bring 100 students whom if we go and talk to them, you just don't talk to them, hey, you want to go and join in health physics. You'll be surprised how I talk to them. You guys know a lot of Southern folks, they love chicken. And I see them in the hallways, hey, how is the chicken today? The guy will look at me with a big smile. It's like I'm trying to show, hey, I am related. If I start talking to him about health physics, he'll be like, oh, I don't care. But that is how I started. Right now, those students are at Los Alamos. So my chicken conversation didn't go waste. It started with chicken, but the student ended up at Los Alamos. So I just showed him, hey, I am related to him. So that is how you have to break that barrier. So which everyone can do. And to add a little bit to the females, definitely I strongly agree with you. My wife works for a nuclear plant, and she's the only female in that whole group in the radiation safety division. She tells me tons of stories. So even though I didn't experience it in person, but people talking about the dressing and all that stuff. Yeah, I see that. I think that's all I have, Alex. But you can ask me more questions. I can add.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to add to him. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking too much, but I'm sorry. I have a lot to say. One thing that I agree with Dr. Billa is I applaud his efforts to bring more minority students, because I know for me, my personal experience, I wanted to change. I have my bachelor's degree in pharmaceutical sciences because I wanted to be a pharmacist until I realized pharmacist was not a job for me. So, but in the middle of that, I wanted to change my degree to physics because I thought it was interesting, but my advisor told me, you can't get a job in physics unless you're a researcher. And now fast forwarding I graduated in 2014. So a couple years later, I'm a health physicist. So that one conversation, if I had somebody like Dr. Bila tell me, you can do anything, you can actually do this specifically, that could have changed the whole scope, which leads into for the state chapters to encourage more minorities to be part of the chapter chain. I took upon myself and put myself in the election for the Virginia Central Council member because I'm kind of got a little heart for Virginia because, my first job was in Virginia and everything, but I wanted to see more of me. And if somebody can see me, then they would have questions like, what do you do? And that can lead the conversation of eventually, like the chicken conversation, they went up at Los Alamos all because they saw me and I helped represent my race and my gender, and I think that if you encourage more minorities to be a part of the chapters, it changes the scope. And then the ideas of bringing the state chapter to go to a HBCU, like Hampton University has a proton therapy center. And I don't know how many people know about that, but that's a huge thing for a HBCU to have, the first HBCU to have a proton therapy center. So if, let's say, the Virginia chapter brings some of the students from Hampton University and introduce them, then they can interact with some medical physicists or even interact with some people up here in the Baltimore, Washington area. Mm-hmm. It's all about exposure at this point. So if the chapters are willing to work with the schools and if the chapters are willing to work with the HPS in general, that's ways we can really make moves, to me.
Exactly, and I think it was you, Ms. Moore, earlier anyway, who said, or who used the 3 bullets: mentorship, exposure, and understanding. My question to you in the panel, or maybe Michael, to start with, when and where? How did you get into the field? And I know, Michael, you talked about mentorship earlier and that you really appreciated it, but that might have been a little later already. What got you there in the first place? Which one of those 3, or what combination of those
3? I think absolutely outreach. Professionals, going to schools, giving lectures, talking about their experience, particularly alumni. I went to an HBCU, so hearing physicists talk about their experiences, and then you get a really good feel. You go to a scientific lecture, about electron transitions and astrophysics, but the lecture also lets you know that, hey, Oak Ridge might be a friendly place for us, right? So if you want to encourage people to come into the field, I think you need advocates like us to go out to schools and just let them know that, hey, this place is great scientifically, but it's also sort of culturally sensitive to a diverse population, right? So definitely exposure, definitely advocates, but going to the students, I'd say, because I don't think many students will just take the initiative and say, hey, what's this Health Physics Society thing? Let me go check out a conference and just walk in without knowing one. We have to go to them. They aren't necessarily going to come to us.
That's perfect. I'm coming back to the statistics that we had talked about earlier, or seen earlier, I think in Kendall's presentation. So most of us are old Caucasian guys, men, like me, right? We try to teach students, how can we be allies and advocates for students? How can we be their mentors without making too many mistakes, or if we don't have the experiences that they might have, whether these are female students or students of color? Again, how do they perceive us, because we are old white guys, and what can we do to make them more comfortable?
Well, so I think I will often say that I finished my bachelor's in physics kind of in spite of the program I was, not because of it at all. I really had no mentorship at all, and I didn't understand that at that age, right? Like I was the only woman in my year in the physics class. I had some legitimate issues, not necessarily with faculty, but some problems. And I really didn't have mentorship, and I kind of stumbled into health physics because I thought maybe I wanted to do medical physics, but Colorado sounded cool, and this health physics seemed a little broader and a little easier, and I could get funded to do it. And I ended up at Colorado State University, and one of the things that I realize now in retrospect is that was a major turning point in my life, because it was the first time I'd ever really had like professional mentorship. I'd ever had people who really believed in me and treated me like somebody who could do this thing. And those mentors were people like Tom Johnson and Ward Wicker, who are not women. And really what it came down to was that I just had people who believed in me and encouraged me and checked in on me and made sure that I was not having issues. And instead of being just super rigid all the time. And if you don't do things exactly this prescriptive way, then you're not gonna succeed, because I think that sometimes we don't realize that those prescriptive ways of getting through education have been constantly benefiting men, and especially white people, for a long time, right? And if we can be a little more flexible in how we educate people, we can start to learn about different students and how to support our students better. And so, I don't know, it seems like Colorado State had in a lot of ways, a really good outlook on that, because it's something that I was able to be successfully mentored. And I think it's important that we remember, especially like there is a lot of extra labor that goes into being, the only woman in your department, or the only Black person in your department, or any of those, that you have to then mentor everybody, and it takes a lot of labor away. And I think that everybody in our society should feel like they should be able to have an active role in trying to mentor our young students, because you can, and you can help relieve a lot of the labor that's been left to certain parts of society. And especially, I think women a lot of times feel that need that we have to try to, make up those gaps. But really, everybody should feel like they could be good mentors. And it's something that I think health physics, to be honest, does a much better job of than a lot of other fields in STEM. I think that my experiences as a student in the society continued to encourage me to pursue this profession. And we can just really keep doing more of it. Representation is important. It's important to have people to look to who do look like you and who can understand your experience. Those are really important things, and I don't want to diminish those in any way. But it doesn't mean that everybody shouldn't be really trying to help take a very active role in mentoring our young students in our society, and people who could be coming into our society.
Jeremiah, you talked about the collaboration between Alcorn State and Colorado State, and you have good contacts with your students. How, when they come back from a trip to Los Alamos, where there's lots of white males, or CSU, where the faculty are white and male, what are their impressions? And it kind of goes in the question goes in the same direction. What can we do to make them comfortable, to make them feel like they can be successful and they can achieve their goals and the goals of an educational program, for example?
Well, I think you guys are really doing a great job, especially, I only, mainly I meet with you and Tom, and sometimes the other radiochemistry professor.
Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph. Yeah, I'm sorry. So this is how it was. Simple example is I don't think Matt really minds bringing his name. Who was your student? Matt never have been out of. He doesn't even go to Jackson. So he has been in that. I call him. You have to come out of that village. That is how I talk to him. But he is always in that limited boundary. But I ended up bringing them to you guys. And this is what I do. We were talking about outreach. I try to bring these folks from Los Alamos or from the Grand Gulf nuclear plant who are African American, and I let them talk to the students so that they will get a feel like, hey, one day, I mean, it's not like only those people that particular race taking, especially being South in Mississippi. I mean, that is a big thing. That is how, unfortunately, if kids think like that. So I try to bring them out of that. So I took these kids to Tom and Alex for a 1-week training, and when I returned, I think I want to go for my master's degree. I want to attend Colorado State. So that means, I mean, they're happy, but what their inner feeling was completely changed once they started talking to these guys and how they were teaching them, how they were trying to help them learn few concepts there. Then immediately Matt ended up going to Los Alamos because of one of your students, Michelle Lee. She's the scientist there. So Michelle, she pulled him there, and immediately he called me. Oh, I want to go to Colorado State. I'm not coming back. And I said, Matt, is it the same Matt I know, or is someone talking? And that guy, you will be amazed. He went. I think Alex and them, they sent him to Japan for a few months. That guy has been everywhere. If you see his Facebook, you will be surprised. Today I am here, today I am there. So I mean, why that kid is in that barrier is he has something that is already in his brain. So once we were able to pull him out of that, and the way how these schools reached out to him, or when he went to Los Alamos, how they trained him, he opened himself, and now he is somewhere in Hawaii. He doesn't like the mainland. He wants some beach life, I guess. So I see him a nice his pictures right next to a nice beach. So definitely, I mean, when it comes to outreach, we have to, I mean, I tell a lot of our faculty members we have to go on outreach. I never go. Do you know why? Because when I go and talk, these high school kids, at that young age, look, I mean, they hear my accent and they will have the best day in their life. I mean, being young, I mean, we all have gone through that. So that's why I do not go. If I go, I'll just say I'll be smiling at them. So we have to play that game really well. We have to find a way to drag their attention to us. What the game you play, that one you have to come up with your own plan. But I mean, I think our students really didn't have any problems at all. This is something that has been going back and forth with Colorado State, and also we have another program with Colorado State and Alcorn State. They take students together. These two school students, they go together to Los Alamos and spend about a week or 10 days. It is a practicum. They see what goes on in the Los Alamos. So kind of we are trying to bring these students together. If the student really likes, then they come back and, oh, I want to go to Colorado State. I mean, we cannot go and take the test for them, but we can just provide them those opportunities. Then once they go there, it is on them.
Right, but we realized that it might be a big step for them to
correct.
Leave their immediate environment.
That is correct. Especially
the group and the society, or the family and friends that they're used to.
But now, I mean,
so I think it is on us to help them feel comfortable in that new environment. And I think this is what we need to get to.
The first step is, in this outreach and all of them, we have to find people who can talk really nice to them and people who look like them. I'm not lying. I mean, I'm being more practical. So that is how I play my game. When we go to recruitment to high schools, I take some of my students who graduated from the same school, and they will talk to the students about the health physics program rather than me or some other faculty. I mean, when they look at us, not me, in general, faculty members, we want to grab them. We want the recruitment. That is that is how they think. But once the students who graduated from the same high school, they talk to them, oh, I mean, that they will fill out the application right there, and you'll see them in the program. So we have to find some way of getting these people and making them more comfortable, showing them that, hey, you come here, it is not like you will be left alone, like mentorship Lisa talked about. So things like that, little things. I mean, we cannot change overnight, but little things we start implementing, definitely we see
understanding and mentorship, right?
Yeah.
I switched the order of Sydney's bullets to understanding exposure and mentorship. Maybe that's the way. I know we're running a little low on time, and I did want to ask you a question that's related to how we as mentors, teachers, professionals can help, and maybe what we do to turn students off, or maybe to help them. And then I want to ask a strategy question to close this out. So the question, and it came from the audience, was whether or not the panelists were aware or were familiar with the implicit association test from Harvard, and if anyone had ever done that, and if you knew how to, I guess, interpret results.
No.
No, but I don't mind taking that test. It sounds really good to know.
Yeah.
Implicit association test. Maybe something that
If
I
it's
want
the
to take
one
as
I'm
well.
thinking of, it's they sort of, you'll get like rapid fire, like they'll start off with simple things like names and that sort of thing that you associate maybe with gender or race, and then they throw professions, and it goes really fast. So things that you're just supposed to be like clicking. I think that's what they're talking. I'm pretty sure. Yes. Okay.
I took the test before. Yes.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
interesting because you think that you would not have those kinds of biases, but then when they rapid fire at you, you're surprised. What I was thinking too is that it's really important to check in on people kind of at all levels, from like undergraduate students to graduate students to even young professionals, because one of the things is that we were talking before a lot, I think Jeremiah was talking about how a lot of his students kind of have this idea in their head of that's kind of self-limiting, and just giving them a little bit of exposure to show them that they shouldn't be limited makes them realize that, oh, this was just a dumb idea in my head. I don't have to go by that. And I do think that people, including women, can be a little bit self-limiting in ways that are unconscious to us. We don't realize we've limited ourselves, but we kind of tend to just sit with where we're at and don't always know that maybe we should be looking at the next thing. And I still think I was checked in at a few phases that were really critical. I won't say his name because I don't know if he'd care or not, but I still remember I was headed to a health physics meeting several years ago now, and I ended up sitting on the plane next to one of our society members from our local chapter. And he just looked at me and goes, "So when are you getting that PhD?" And I think I had sort of written myself out of it at that point. I didn't think that was something I was going to do. And hearing somebody who was a white male but say to me, "When are you doing that?" It made me start to think, oh wow, somebody thinks I should be doing this. Should I be doing this? Why am I not doing this? Like, it's not like I'd never considered a PhD before, but after I had kind of settled into my career and felt like, well, maybe this is good enough for me. Like, having someone just plant those seeds, I think, is really helpful, because I think some of those biases get us even without us knowing it, and they can make us feel limited in ways that we don't even realize they are until something makes us think a little bit more. So
I think that's great insight. Let me ask you, all panelists together, one final question that really, is on the mind of HPS, the Health Physics Society. Where do you see we can make the next steps, and maybe the most important and the most impactful steps as HPS, as the Health Physics Society, in making it more welcoming to women and minorities, to be able to retain women and minorities in our field? Where would you like us to go?
I would say having conversations like this, because you don't know what you don't know. Most of us are so caught up in work, school, we got personal things going on where we don't realize what we're doing is actually affecting somebody beside us. So when we have discussions like this and we create a safe space where that person can come to you like, hey, that was kind of bad what you just said. And when you create spaces like that, you open up your mind and you open up other people realizing, you know what, that was kind of biased. I shouldn't have said that. You know what, next time I make sure. And that alone is most like a continuous process that's going to happen beyond our years, when we continue to address them as they happen, not just wait and let it fester and then something major happens and then we having discussions like this. I think we should catch it early and continue to have the conversation.
And those conversations are uncomfortable. Like I'm going to be blunt, they can be really uncomfortable, especially in a society that teaches us, if you're racist, you're bad, and if you're sexist, you're bad. And so if somebody exposes you to this idea that you've done something that was that you like it makes you feel bad and makes you feel uncomfortable. But especially like those of us who are white are very used to being comfortable, and we should recognize that a lot of our colleagues live a life where they are much more uncomfortable all of the time because of all of these things that can really impact their environment. So I'd say, you know, like start to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, I guess I'd say, you know, like expect, like don't, we have a desire to want to say, we want to make everything comfortable for everyone. And the reality is we're not going to get there until we have some of these hard conversations that are not very comfortable for us and that are going to challenge us. And that are going to make us feel not great, you know, knowing that maybe we participated in something we didn't even realize we were doing that was holding people back in ways that we never thought of before, because that's how we grow. So I would say, you know, recognize that these conversations aren't all going to feel great and they are going to be a little uncomfortable, but that's part of this process. We want everybody to feel more comfortable. We're going to have to get through some of this first.
Yeah, I can't agree more with Lisa about kind of having those conversations, and it does need to happen kind of on both sides. But another thing that, you know, the society can do as a whole, and they've already moved steps to kind of doing that, is having, you know, like a women's group, and, you know, because there are things that we can kind of are easier that we can kind of relate with each other or have kind of war stories, you know, kind of like the boys have a boys club a little bit, you know, and that's kind of bound to happen, but for women to have that too. I have mommy.
She wants to be like you. She wants to participate in the panel.
Perfect extent. I think this will have to be a part of the discussion too, not just for women, for everyone. You know, the balance between work and life, and especially during the pandemic, other spaces that we're in. I really appreciate your, I think it's your young daughter, right, joining us this afternoon. I think this is a great show of you know, some of the difficulties that people, individuals, professionals might face sometimes.
And I would like to add, Dr. Bila, I don't know if your students are aware there's a National Society of Black Physicists that I'm a part of, and that'd be other ways for them to really interact with people that looks like them, that are professionals. And I believe there's societies like that also for the Latino communities, because we can't leave out them either.
Okay. I will discuss with our students and encourage them to be part of that. But not normally all of our students are part of the HPS Society.
Alex, if I can just chip in. I absolutely agree that at a minimum, this conversation needs to keep going on. Again, it not necessarily the ideas, which are excellent and they're great, but you know, the 200 plus people that logged on, you know, and understand that they are allies here in Health and Society. And when we stop meeting virtually, you know, someone says, "Hey, I remember Michael, you know, from the virtual meeting. You know, let's have breakfast, let's talk." And this can be a student, and these networking connections, you know, can just be the small nudge that just that changes the inflection point of a person's career. You know, because I know this individual, you should sit down with her, and you guys should get together later on, and she'll give you some good advice. And then people understand that, you know, it's a safe space, it's a welcoming community. But if this doesn't happen, you know, that student might just come to a meeting, you know, sit in the corner, attend a couple interesting lectures, and then leave, and then they don't feel like they're being included in the society. So at a minimum, you know, carrying on this conversation and letting people know that this is an issue that we're working on, and they can be allies if the individual wants to reach out.
Absolutely.
Did anyone go to the speed networking thing that was, or speed mentoring or something that we did for students last year at the health visit? Sorry, yeah, I went to that. It was phenomenal. More stuff like that, I think, would be really positive, just for getting everybody together to meet each other, right?
I think we have stuff for women, some different minority groups and everything. The group that kind of, gets lost or maybe ignored is probably the young professionals that are just going out to the field, and especially going to an overwhelming kind of meeting and everything. I think we, once they've kind of stepped over that student threshold and going to the next step and everything, if they haven't made those kind of connections or just going in the field, we need to also make sure that we have a safe space for them and kind of, make it more inclusive for them and a comfortable environment where, as Michael said, they're not just sitting on the corner and everything at a meeting and feeling alone and not welcomed.
And I have to agree with Bay. Because Dr. Lee was somebody I met at my very first HPS meeting. And that made me feel like, wow, there's people like me here. So I think that's awesome.
Oh yeah, I've been to a ton of meetings, not at HPS, where I just did exactly that. Just sat down, probably the only Black guy in the room, just no one really making the effort to engage with me. This is as a student. And yeah, I didn't go into those careers. I went into HPS because of the community, because of the mentorship. So that really plays a huge role, I think, in someone's entrance into a particular career field.
I think this is a really good opportunity, for individuals and individual groups, but it will be on us. And I come back to the old white guys to then also engage those groups, right? And not be standoffish ourselves, right? And so I think this is something to pay attention to as well as being on the other side, almost. Kendall, I think I saw your smile. I thought you might have another suggestion or some strategy suggestions for the society also.
No, I think these are all really good ideas. We need to keep these conversations going. We need to increase our mentorship of students, of young professionals, and we need to keep our minds open and be open to being uncomfortable, be open to the idea that, yes, people are harassed within our society. And yeah, it might actually be you doing the harassing. But you know what the amazing thing is? With all of these issues, 90% of the time, all you need is for that person to recognize, oh, shoot, I am so sorry. I'm sorry. The best thing that we can hear. And if we hear that and it's genuine, then it's over. Whatever that slight was, it's over. But when you ignore the individual and you dismiss them, that's when we can't change the problem. So as long as everybody's comfortable with being uncomfortable and saying the words, I'm sorry, genuinely, we've got this.
I agree, and I think this was a great closing remark, and that will be and should be and has to be our way forward. I realize we went a little over the time that was initially allocated for our panel discussion, but I think it was such an important discussion that I didn't want to cut it short. And I hope the Secretariat forgives me for not doing so.
Oh, we encourage you. That was fantastic. Yeah.
And I really appreciate your time and your insight. And I'm hoping it will help us all to be better in the future. I know, Kendall, you said it in the morning or earlier this afternoon that we've come a long way, but there's still room for improvement. And I'm hoping that panels, sessions, discussions, presentations like this afternoon will help us get there.
That's great.
Thank you all, and thank you to the audience. They stuck with us too. I really appreciate it.
Still 184 people here. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for the panelists, the presenters, Bay, for your daughter's cameo appearance. It was great to see everybody, and you guys just really did an incredible job I also want to put in a quick plug for, HPS has a meeting in the spring, in May next year, that's going to be for young professionals and everyone else. And we're really hoping that we have a diverse group of young professionals and students there for that. So keep your eyes open. There'll be more information coming about that. It'll be another opportunity to have these kinds of conversations and to increase diversity. I also want to thank our sponsors and especially ORAU for being our title sponsor tonight. And if you want to be a sponsor, just reach out to us and we'll take care of that for you. And with that, I think I'd like to say thank you again for a really great kickoff to this year's meeting and a really important discussion that is welcomed and maybe a little overdue. So thank you guys. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you, guys.
appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.